who used to be our general counsel and ISRA general counsel, and asked if I did, when we taught home invasion. And I said, yeah. And he asked if I recommended that you use an AR carbine for home invasion. And I said, no. And he said that wasn't the answer he was looking for. So he asked if I would go and study up on it, and I did. And I called him back and I go, I get it. So yeah, I will. Why do you want to know? And I became one of the experts on Friedman in Highland Park and Wilson in Cook County. Somewhere along the line, I got the brilliant idea of starting a group of people who are experts. And are there any attorneys in here right now?
All right.
Okay, so
does retired count?
yeah, that probably counts. Why not?
Dangerous, right?
Phil Mock in the back.
Where's Phil?
Way in the back.
Oh, hiding back there, aren't you?
He's always hiding.
So now I got to really be careful what I say. So I'm not an attorney, and I did not spend the night at a Holiday Inn Express. So I don't really always know all the legal language. Phil certainly can fill us in if I miss something. But here's the point. We started a group, and we got 5 people who really cover, we cover basically everything in the firearms industry within reason. We've got a guy who's an environmental specialist, lead mitigation, does all that kind of stuff. We have one of the NRA guys who are certified to go around the country and do range audits. He does our indoor and outdoor range work. We got Cliff over here who does all our gunsmithing, litigation, that type of thing. I do this sort of practical stuff, the training and prudent operation, that sort of thing. And who am I missing? Oh, and Ed Ronkowski, who is our law guy, obviously. So, and if you want, I think I mailed one to Phil, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm going to share with you a couple of things. When we teach law, well, Gretchen teaches most of the law for our concealed carry program. But one of the things I always talk about is people are always saying, well, I don't care if it's legal or not, it's my right. I want my day in court.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. Yeah, you really don't. No, you don't. Your day in court is this. You hire an attorney for as much money as you can afford, and it's somebody who works out in his kitchen, can't get a job with a regular firm, and you're going to court, and the prosecutor is up for re-election, and he sees your case as being above the fold in the Tribune on the front page. You're going to get him re-elected. Being heard by a judge who just had an argument with their spouse in front of 12 people who weren't smart enough to get out of jury duty. That's your day in court. So, and I want to tell you, and I don't mean to demean the legal profession.
I do.
Okay, I do, but that's a different issue. It really is a rather capricious thing. I used to do expert witness work in the aviation field before I moved here, and I got really into shooting school and all. And we were going walking out of court. You know, you watch 2 attorneys in a courtroom, and it looks like they want to kill each other. And there are some rivalries, certainly, but mostly most attorneys in a given area know one another, right? You know who your colleagues are there, and basically they all get along, pretty much. Except, who do we have on the show? Joel, what's his name? He didn't get along with anybody, but Drew Pearson's guy. Joel Brodsky, yeah, he was on the show. That's an interesting man, but I won't go there because I'll get sued by him. So I'm walking out the door with our attorney. It was a power company case in aviation, and I'm walking out the door. Now, 20 minutes before, the judge all but held these guys in contempt. They were like barking at each other, yelling across the room. You thought they wanted to kill one another. And we hit the door at the exact same time as that attorney, and he goes, Jim, you want to go to lunch? It's like they're buddies. They're buddies. And he says to me, as soon as you started to say what I started to say, I knew I'd lost the case. And I said to him, if you'd have paid me more, I could have won it for you. It's not, the job of an expert is not to solve the other guy's problem. The job of an expert is to present the truth as I believe it to be, as I look at the case. Now, people go, well, you defend criminals? I don't defend anybody. I believe personally everybody has a right to have the truth, as far as I understand it, in court. So an attorney will call me and he'll lay out the case, and I'll tell them what I think. Sometimes I get hired, and sometimes they don't like what I think. It's that simple. So it's not like I defend somebody who's a criminal. I just want people to have the benefit of having what I feel the truth is. So I got a couple of cases that I'll show you how it works. I had to do crib notes. Some of these go back a ways. Illinois versus Donald Sullivan was a good one. This is probably 4 years ago. It was in the 18th Judicial Circuit. So here's a guy who is who's driving on Roosevelt Road, 12th Street, right? Roosevelt Road. And he's in, I think it was Lombard, minding his own business. Now, in the glove compartment of his car, he has an XD 40 caliber and a loaded magazine next to it, but not in the gun, which under the Diggins ruling is legitimate. You can do that. You can do that. Now, a guy cuts him off, big one of those monster trucks, cuts him off, literally cuts him off into the curb. Okay, so Sullivan goes, fine, you know. The guy then goes around the block, apparently, and does it a second time. And then does it a third time. And he's giving him the you-know-what and threatening him. So Sullivan gets on a cell phone, and he calls 911. And he says, I'm here, X, Y, and Z. And this guy's done this 3 times. I have no idea who he is. Now he's threatening me, literally, with gestures and yelling through the window. And he said, send the cops out here, get this guy. And then he makes a big mistake, and he says, otherwise, if he comes at me, I have a gun in the car, and I'll defend myself. Guess who they arrest? Right. So I'm in there, and we're in court, and they're deposing me. The judge is in there. And I go through this explanation, and what he had done is he took that gun and he put the magazine in the gun, but never put one in the chamber. To me, that's an unloaded gun. Now, in the state of Illinois, there is no definition for an unloaded gun. There is in some states. Utah has one, but Illinois doesn't. So I go through this whole thing, and they kind of are, the prosecutor is kind of riding on me a little bit, and we do this, it takes about an hour, hour and a half. When I'm done, the judge says, she looks at me and she goes, I'm going to allow Mr. Lombardo's testimony, but, and she looks directly at me and she says, you can't use the word unloaded. I go, Your Honor, that's the entire basis of my defense. The entire basis of what I'm going to say is that gun is not loaded. She goes, I won't allow it. You can't use unloaded. I go, okay. So I go home and I'm going, if that's your whole point, the gun wasn't loaded, it was non-functional, what am I going to do? And then I had an idea. I did a videotape showing the gun, showing how you load it, what it looks like when it's loaded, how it ejects and how it does everything, but I never use the word unloaded. I go, the chamber is empty, you can pull the trigger as many times as you want, gun can't fire because there isn't anything in the chamber. I just walk all the way around that word and never in that entire tape use unloaded. They threw out the charge. When they played the videotape, they threw out the charge. So, that's just a case of, you would think it's a game, and to some degree it is, and I don't mean to insult the lawyers in the room, but to some degree it is somewhat of a game. You have to learn how to present your client's best image without lying. I mean, you have to do it honestly. So that was one. Another one was, we had a guy named Jeremy Lydon. And Jeremy Lydon actually got picked up, possession with intent. He had over 30 grams of a leafy green substance. That's how it's written up, leafy green substance. But in the process of doing that, they found out he had firearms. And of course, they confiscate the firearms. So They said he had an AK-47 and a MAC-10. Both of them were full auto, and he had a silencer. I'm not a gunsmith, so I call Cliff, and we go to 26th in California, and they bring the evidence out of the evidence locker, bring it up to us into the judge's chambers. You want to say a word about that?
Well, we examined the guns, we looked at them. They weren't as they suspected. They weren't fully auto or suppressed. Dave will probably go into the part that we presented a written copy of that to the judge, and the judge accepted that. But what I will say about this whole case was, don't get pinched in Cook County with a gun, because they throw as much shit on the wall to try to get you hooked up. The prosecutor actually said they already had the city crime lab examine these guns, and the report said that they weren't fully auto, nor were they suppressed. Our report said the same thing. And the prosecutor actually wanted to send those guns to the state crime lab, as busy as they are, after two professionals had said they weren't, just to hook somebody up with a gun in Cook County. Ms. Alvarez definitely is anti-gun.
Ultimately, the judge was not pleased with that, and they dropped the charges against the guy. In fact, that day, didn't they, as I recall? That very day, they dropped the charges against him. But Cliff is right. In Chicago, the marching orders are just, arrest people. Just do
Did he
it.
get his guns back?
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Well, it is, because they weren't really very good guns. I think they weren't that, and one of the things they do, they didn't carve the numbers in his, did they?
No.
But they do that. One of the things they do, I was just talking to used to be my veterinarian when I had dogs, on the way over here. And he was telling me, he goes, I want to get my concealed carry permit. I go, oh, we'd be happy to do that for you. And he said, I'm thinking of carrying a chrome Colt Python. I go, Rich, do you have any idea how much that gun is worth? He goes, oh yeah, it's a great gun. It's worth a lot of money. And I go, if you ever use that gun, you're probably never going to see it. If you're in Cook County, you probably never see it again. It'll be, that Colt 357, what that snake name was all silver. No, I ain't seen it. I don't know where it is. But one of the things they do is they carve the case number into the gun. They just literally with a, what do you call it?
Laser etching.
A laser etch. They laser etch the case number in the gun. They're just screwing with you. That's all they're doing. They're just screwing with you. So we got Leiden on. Now the interesting one, I got a phone call from a guy, and here's what he said. He said, Mike, I have a client who killed his wife, and that's factual. He said that he was going to clean the firearm, and it went off by itself. Shot her in the head, took off half her head. I said, what gun did he have? He said it was a Springfield Armory XD40 caliber. And I go, I own that gun. And for a modest $300 an hour, I'll come to your office and I will show you why the two most important words are plea bargain, okay? So I go to the office and he's there. Because he's never threatened anybody in his life. He's this nice guy who killed his wife. So they're sitting in there, and I bring the gun, and I take it out, take it apart, show them how it works, show them how it's got a backstrap safety, if any of you are familiar with the gun. That gun's unloaded, right? Yep. Okay. So I will try my, unfortunately I'm surrounded by people.
Put that back in there. And then take it out when they're looking.
Ah, okay, I can do that. Everybody ready? I'm going to show you mine if you show me yours. I don't
You
need
can
to
see
make
this
it.
one all the way down through the chamber. The gun is unloaded.
Yeah.
'Cause he's going to play with it. So.
Okay. So, if you look at this gun, it has a backstrap safety, which means very much like the 45, the government issue 45, you have to grip the gun properly for it to go off. So it won't fire if it's not malfunctioning. It won't fire if you don't grip it properly. So I take the gun and empty magazine in it. George is sitting right there next to his attorney, and I pop the magazine out. And he says, let me see that. So I hand him the gun, and he's working this gun, and he can't get the magazine to come out of it. It's my gun. I know it works. I just did it. He can't get. He's pushing the button, it won't come out. I go, what are you doing, George? And he goes, I'm trying to get it out. Now, in the process of doing this, you know the term flagging somebody, muzzling them? It's your muzzle's going all over the place. George had less than no muzzle control. Okay? It was unbelievable. He flagged himself. He flagged me. He flagged his attorney. That muzzle was going all over. I'm like watching this thing like a bumblebee in flight, right? He had never taken a course, had no clue what he was doing, and the gun's going around. But the one thing I notice is he's pushing on this thing. He's got 2 thumbs on it now. I'm going, George, give me the gun. He hands me the gun. He goes, how the hell did you do that? So here's his story. He says he'd had the gun about a year, never used it, been upstairs for the whole year, sold it to a friend of his who was going to come the next day and pick it up. His wife is upstairs, and there's no history of anything, no violence or domestic violence or anything between them, no threats, nothing. His wife's upstairs, and he calls up to her and he said, bring the gun downstairs, I'm going to clean it, put it back in the original box, the guy's coming tomorrow, he's going to pick it up. She brings it down. Now, forensics bears this out completely. He says he's sitting on the couch, she's standing right next to him, okay? And all this is undisputed. She hands him the gun, and the XD has a little indicator on top that shows you whether or not it's loaded. It's a little thing that pops up. She hands him the gun, he looks at it, and he goes, oh, it's loaded. So what does he do? And I don't know, Red see me, will you? Part. I don't want to point a gun at either one of you. So he points the, if you think about this, if you're sitting down and you do that, you're sitting with this gun at an angle trying to hit the mag release, right? Look at they run away. Smart.
I'm on the ground.
I would. You know, I wouldn't trust me. Now he's holding it like this. Forensics tells us that's literally the angle that shot her in the side of the head and took half her head off. And nobody's disputing that at all. But what he says is, I'm trying to get the magazine out, it won't come out. And he said, all of a sudden, the gun went off by itself. And I go, there could technically, maybe there's something wrong with the gun. So I called Cliff again, and we went to Chicago Heights, and Cliff took it apart and looked at it, gun's fine. Nothing wrong with the gun. So there's only one way that gun went off, he pulled the trigger. So I go, George, I can't understand why you can't get the magazine out. It's my gun, it works, you saw me. So he says, I said, show me exactly what you're doing. Now again, he sits there and he's doing this, right? He's pushing with one thumb. And here's the thing. The XD, the post for the magazine release, goes all the way through the gun and comes to the other side. So that you can turn it around, if you're a gunsmith, and make it a left-handed gun. When George is a Greek guy, short little chubby guy, and he's got small hands, little chubby fingers. His hand does not wrap around that gun, his thumb doesn't reach the magazine release. So he does what I always taught students to do. That's a hell of a thing to walk in on. It's some guy holding the gun on the door. This is an assault rifle, right? Isn't it? Yeah. So he did what I've always told students to do. If you don't buy a gun that fits your hand, which you should, what you want to do is you want to camp the gun slightly in your hand so that your thumb does reach it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. With this gun, with that backstrap safety, if you cant it in your hand, this part of your hand is still holding the safety down. I'm still holding the safety. But where do you think the index finger ends up on the other side? Directly over that post. So the harder you squeeze on that magazine release, the harder you're pushing on the other side. He was pushing against his own finger, which is why it wouldn't move. Now in frustration, I'm watching him, and he takes and he wraps this finger in a trigger guard. And he puts the other thumb on top, and he's pushing with two thumbs, and what do you think happens? And he goes, what was that? And I go, you just fired the gun. He goes, no, I didn't. I go, yeah, you did. He didn't even know that he was doing that. Now, I don't know what George was thinking the night he shot his wife. But I've been shooting, Uncle Sam taught me to shoot in 1966, and I've been shooting ever since. I've shot a lot of guns. We've trained over 7,000 students. That's never occurred to me. Never occurred to me. And listening to him talk about that firearm and watching him handle that firearm, George was not the brightest bulb in the room. And when it comes to guns, I mean, to think that he could manufacture the story, come up with all of this, manufacture it, get his wife to stand in exactly the right spot, hold the gun at exactly the right angle so it looks like he's trying to take it apart, that he could do all that, I couldn't do that, and I've been doing it for years. So, I honestly believe, and driving over there, all I could think about was $300 an hour. This is my retirement program. I honestly believe he screwed up. It's a negligent discharge. I think that's exactly what he did. And I told Ted, the attorney, I said, I'll go into court. I'll tell him exactly what I saw. I'll tell him precisely what it is, how it happened. You know, I don't know how it'll come out. They're going to set a trial date next month. But I do really believe that it was a coupling of when I was at the University of Illinois back in the 70s, we did research, this was aviation, but we did research in what was then called the man-machine environment interface. It was for aviation. And this is exactly the type of thing, but an aviation equivalent, that we would look at. It's a combination of the gun did not fit his hand, so that the man himself was not educated, didn't know what he was doing, no training, had no idea what he was doing when he bought the gun. The gun itself, the machine, was inappropriate for him, for his size hand. And environmentally, I mean, the fact that he was in his living room and his wife was standing next to him when he tried to do it. All three of those came together at the same time, and he killed his wife. We always talked about an accident being a chain of events. And if you could break any link along that thing, very seldom in life does an accident spontaneously occur. It almost always has something that led up to it. If you hadn't have done this, you wouldn't have gotten there. And in his case, there was a long chain of things that he could have broken links and didn't. Now we'll see how it comes out. But I'm perfectly happy going into court and telling them what I saw, and I do believe it was a negligent discharge. So that's kind of the stuff that we do. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. Nobody going to court? I can't give anybody my card or anything? No? Okay.
Well, I have a question.
Yep.
The first case that you mentioned, the guy on Roosevelt Road in
Yeah.
Lombard, if he had a round in the chamber, I'm not familiar with the law in this regard, but if he had a round in the chamber when this guy is threatening him, what's wrong with that? I mean,
Well, you can't, this is prior to concealed carry, right? And so he was transporting the firearm in the vehicle legally. But as soon as he's out in public and he loads a gun, that's not. Phil, am I pretty close to home on that? Yeah. Now, there is a sort of greater good issue if you can prove, and because here now we're getting to the Holiday Inn part, not the lawyer part, but there is a sort of, the guy was going to kill me and I have the gun. I mean, that kind of comes into play, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's called the necessity defense.
Yeah.
Break the law to prevent a greater harm.
Exactly. But we never got to that. They were bogged down with the fact that he had a gun. But the gun, and to this day, I still say this, the gun was not loaded. Utah has a definition for a loaded gun. And Utah's definition, and they have it for a reason. Utah's definition, and I don't know it exactly, you know word for word?
It's the operation of any mechanism one time would cause the gun to fire is a loaded gun.
That's why she teaches the law. Gronkowski's brainwashed her, okay? So they've got it. And the reason they have that definition is because you can carry an unloaded gun, which, again, if it's a revolver, the first time you pull the trigger, it falls in an empty chamber. That is statutorily unloaded. If it's a semi-auto, it's a full magazine, but not in the chamber. Statutorily unloaded. And in Utah, people can open carry without anything. As long as you're a law-abiding citizen, they can walk down the street with that gun. But Illinois doesn't have that definition. So
That's
the
the
problem
shoot me
with
first law.
Huh?
That's the shoot me first law.
Shoot me first, yes.
I'm the one with the gun, shoot me first.
Yep, and that's exactly right. If we had open carry, I probably wouldn't do it for that very reason. But in his case, as soon as he loaded the gun, he was illegal. The debate became, is putting the magazine in the gun considered loading? I said no, they said yes. In the end, he got dismissed out when they got the video. So,
Well, now with concealed carry, would the case have been different then?
well, you can carry a loaded gun.
A loaded gun.
Provided you got a permit.
Yeah, as long as you have concealed carry, yeah, thank you. That's small technicality, yeah. That's like, you know, normally Gretchen teaches the law on Saturday, and I come in on Sunday. I always joke, I say, this is the second half of the Beauty and the Beast show, figure out which one I am. And I come in and I teach people how to shoot people. And one of the first questions that I get in the morning, after they had heard the day before, is, are you really telling me that if somebody breaks in my house, I can't shoot them? And I say, did Gretchen say that? She told you couldn't shoot him? Of course you can shoot him, absolutely. You're going to prison, but yeah, you can shoot him, you know. So people have a lot of misconceptions. With concealed carry, if you have a permit, you may have a loaded gun. I was almost going to say how many people, but I won't ask that question. You can have a loaded gun on you. Now, if you need it, you're legally carrying the gun. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I had a question. I've seen some ads or things for insurance, and if you've got a concealed carry permit, this insurance will cover you. I just want to know what's your opinion on this concealed carry?
Gretchen has actually studied that. Speak.
I wouldn't say that I've studied it. I wouldn't say that I've studied it, but we do talk about it in class a little bit. There's only two companies that sell any insurance that's worth a darn as far as concealed carry and home protection are concerned. The first one is called Second Call Defense. They advertise in the ISRA magazine, things like that. The other one is USCCA, the United States Concealed Carry Association. They were here about 6 months ago, and they talked at length about their insurance. You can get a cheap rider on your homeowner's insurance that supposedly will cover you if you have to shoot someone who breaks into your home. But they will not, any other kind of legal coverage that you can, legal insurance coverage, sorry, that you can get will not pay one dime until you're proven innocent. Okay, so think about that. Think about, I've got to post bond myself. I've got to pay a retainer for an attorney myself. I have to find an attorney myself. I have to miss work to go to court. So there's upfront expenses that you are going to have if you shoot someone. And those two insurance coverages give you upfront cash assistance for those things that you need cash for, and you never ever have to pay it back. So even if you're not exonerated, you never have to pay that upfront cash back. So that's what really makes those two unique and much better really than anything else that you can get. The USCCA has 3 levels of coverage. Second Call has 4 levels of coverage. The entry point for both of them is very reasonable, under $10 a month for both of them once you divide it out. For USCCA, you do it by the year. You have to pay it all 1 year at a time.
No, they'll take payments now.
Oh, do they? Oh, okay. So that's new. But yeah, I don't mess around with Legal Shield. Don't mess around with the homeowner's insurance. That's all bullshit. Okay. Second Call Defense and USCCA. Those are the only 2 insurance coverages you're going to want to look at.
Does anybody in here watch our radio show on Sunday night?
Can I add something to what you just
Isn't
said?
she, do you ever hear her at night? Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know about the second call defense. USCCA gets veterans, military retirees a discount.
Oh, do they really?
Yes, they do.
Oh, good. Okay. I should look at that. I have no idea what I was going to say.
Your radio show.
You're making fun of me.
I wasn't making fun of you. You teach law. She'll see. Anybody else, anything?
To Gretchen's point,
versus Garner. So you may or may not be familiar with Tennessee versus Garner. But the reason, at the time of the incident, it was legal for the police or anyone else to shoot a fleeing felon, okay, for any felony, just felony, period. When this happened, the police shot a fleeing felon. He did end up dying, and his family sued the police department, the city, et cetera, okay? Went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court decided in 1985 that this was in violation of the young man's Fourth Amendment rights, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's illegal search and seizure and due process, right? So it was the ultimate seizure of the young man's life, okay? He was a minor, FYI. And so at that point, it became illegal for the police and others, which is us, to shoot a fleeing felon for a property crime, which is what that was, okay? The young man committed a property crime. It was just a break-in. So if someone comes in and they're just stealing your computer, you can't shoot them.
Well, when they're breaking in, you don't know what they're doing. They're invading your privacy. Are they there to harm you, or are they there to steal something? They're still breaking into a home that's locked and secure.
I understand. I didn't write the law. I just deliver it. There has to be additional aggressive behavior.
I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll explain a little something about it.
We'll let the cop talk.
Have your seat back.
If the police show up and they determine the guy was unarmed, and the cop is one of the few that aren't pro-gun, you're going to jail. You might not stay there. The next morning, you might get told by the prosecutor, if it's Mr. Bach in the back, that that was a good shooting. But as I tell everybody, you have the right to remain silent. If the police shoot somebody, they don't even let me give a statement until my attorney or union rep is there. I suggest the same.
Yeah, I'll make a couple comments, because I teach more of the tactics. Your concern is justifiable, certainly. And I use this example. I say, because one of the things I do is I give these examples. You know, this is a scenario, what would you do things, right? So I use this scenario. You're in your living room, and you're watching your favorite TV show, Oprah. And you got your AK-47 in your lap, and you're, polishing it and whatever. And a guy breaks through the back door, comes running down the hallway, grabs your 70-inch Razor high-def 3 HDMI quadraphonic sound flat panel TV, rips it off the wall, probably has a quick hernia surgery, and he starts booking out the door. And then I go, light him up? And a lot of people go, yeah. So here's the problem. It's a property crime, and you can't do that. Now, but here's the other part of the equation. You're in your house. You have a right to be holding the gun. You can say anything you want in your house. If that guy were smart, he wouldn't be doing that for a living. My experience in having worked as a cop is frequently when you point a gun at someone, they usually stop doing what they're doing, don't they?
Usually.
Usually. And if they don't, that's probably the guy you want to shoot. But that's a different issue. So if you point your AK-47 at him and you go, freeze or I'll shoot you, he probably doesn't know you can't. But let's say he's the smartest crook on the planet, and he knows you have no legal right to shoot me over a property crime. He doesn't know that you're not the stupidest person on the planet and don't know it, right? Generally speaking, if you point a gun at somebody, they stop. But if they don't, it's property crime. And if you think about it, let me just give you a little more background on this.
Unless you throw a steak knife on the ground next to him.
Oh, that's really, okay. I thank you very much, because I love it in class when people do that. I really appreciate that. Let me think about that. No. So it will take the forensics, you know what? The forensics people will not have dropped the donut to leave before they'll know what you did. Ultimately, what you want, you remember, for those of you who are like in my age category, they used to show on television, because you couldn't show a body, right? They used to show a chalk outline, right? One of those things? What you want is a guy in your living room, that chalk outline, with the silhouette of the gun in his hand pointed where you were standing. Nice and clean, very, very clear cut, right? But it could be a knife, or it could be the mob's favorite tool of destruction. You know what that is? Anybody know? Baseball bat. What are you doing with the baseball bat in your car, Joey? I play baseball. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Felons can carry baseball bats. The analogy I make is this. This is me getting up in the morning, standing here. This is a metaphor. And over there at that door is me going to bed at night with no extra holes in my body, not under indictment. And there's a straight line between here and there. And if I stay on that straight line, I'm almost certainly going to go home at the end of the day. If I step a little bit off that line, I'll probably get back and get home. The further I get away from that line, the less likely I'm going to be sleeping in my own bed tonight. I'm going to be in jail. A guy comes into your house, unarmed, and you shoot him, you're going to jail. Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to find a Louisville slugger in really great condition for $3 at Big John's flea market. So I picked it up, and I've got it sitting just inside my kitchen. So
A baseball bat's a
if they
good home
come
defense
in,
weapon.
they're going down. And now that I know this, the Louisville slugger is going to be laying after I have it printed with this.
Yeah, yeah. I always ask people, when people say, you know, I don't care what the law says, it's my right, I always ask them what kind of cigarettes they smoke. And they'll go, typically these days they go, I don't smoke. Now that's a shame. I was going to give you a couple of cartons, because that's what you're going to need to get along with your roommate for the first 2 weeks, okay? Bubba is going to want to make you his girlfriend. This isn't Texas. It's not Minnesota. It's not Idaho. You can't do that here. And frankly, with governors, technically, you really can't do it anyway. It is what it is. But I want to say one quick thing, I'll get to you. And this, I make this a really key issue when we teach concealed carry, a really key issue. And that is, the object of concealed carry is not to kill somebody. The object of concealed carry is to prevent them from hurting you. That's what it's about. It's not what I do to him that matters. It's what I prevent him from doing to me. And I'll give you a good example why I say that, what the difference is. Where can you shoot somebody if they're going to die? They're going to die. Where? If you sever the brain stem in the back, that's true. But very few robbers come up to you and go, give me your money, so you can get that shot from behind. That we call a brain box shot is a sniper shot. That's not practical for a guy trying to defend himself. So what's left? What's the one place you can shoot somebody you know they're going to die? What did you say? Go ahead. Right in the heart, right? Shoot somebody in the heart. Do you know an able-bodied adult male in good physical condition, you can blow out their heart, and if they recover from the shock of it, they can have as much as a minute of life left. They take you with them. Listen to me, they take you with them when you do that. That's not acceptable to me. So it's not what you do to him that you should be worried about, it's preventing him from doing something to you. Okay, and that's what we talk about. We talk extensively about that. What was it? Somebody had a question over here? Yeah.
Where does forcible felony come into the picture of unlawful use of a weapon?
Forcible, actually, as long as we have somebody who can really give you a good definition, if you don't mind. I mean, I can do it, but you know it better than I do.
Forcible felony is a crime of violence, and you can use deadly force against that. A forcible felony, like armed robbery, they got a weapon that they're using on you against force. An aggravated battery causing you great bodily harm. Sexual assault's a forcible felony. Any of those type of forcible felonies, you can use deadly force to repel. If it's an aggravated battery because we happen to be in this public place of accommodation, a restaurant, I hate you, it's still the same crime, aggravated battery, but it's not a forcible felony under the statute because there's no great bodily harm element, and you couldn't kill me for punching you in a bar.
But if I was hitting you with a beer bottle or something that could hurt you worse, then you could. But that's where that comes into. Our statutes originally said burglary is a forcible felony. There was a case that said residential burglary isn't. They burglarize and break into your garage, it's a forcible felony. But since the legislature didn't use the term in the definition of residential burglary, it's not. I mean, that's just how arbitrary these rules are. But again, even for the forcible felony of burglary, unless there's an element of a threat of great bodily harm, you can't use deadly force.
So home invasion would be a forcible felony?
Home invasion is a forcible felony. If they break in a tumultuous manner, that's what the definition is.
They can keep the door open.
They keep the door in. They break a window and come through, and it happens so fast, you think something bad's happening, that's a home invasion. If they're carrying a weapon when they come in your house, that's a home invasion, whether they use it or not. If they come in your house and cause you great bodily harm, even if they don't have a weapon, that's a home invasion. But if you got a sneak thief burglar, he comes in an unlocked door, that's not a home invasion.
And here's the even worse compounding part of this, and Ed Ronkowski talks about this a lot. You can take the exact same case, go into Cook County, and the mindset of jurors in Cook County, on average, is, I know you had that card thing, and yeah, I get all that stuff, and I get the guy broke in and threatened you, but if you had a gun, you were probably doing something wrong to begin with. But if you come out here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but I think if you come out to Will or Kendall or Kane or any of the more rural counties, the attitude is, all right, yeah, you can have a gun to defend yourself, but did you do it, is what you did, was that a reasonable thing? Is that a fair assessment?
That's true, and it's really arbitrary as to who you get. In a lot of offices, you can get 5 different prosecutors, and 3 of them may want to charge somebody in Toulon with the exact same fact situation. It just depends who's doing the charging that day. It is very arbitrary.
The bottom line is you really don't want to go to court. You really don't. And when we do concealed carry, we spend a big chunk of time talking about how not to get into a gunfight, how to avoid it. Please.
And 2, if you just think, the only time you should use a firearm in self-defense is when you feel like you're going to have great bodily harm or death caused upon you or someone you're with. If you can keep that in your mind, and not that they're stealing something of mine, because if you do go to court, let's say you get an overzealous prosecutor who wants another win, he's going to be trying to get 7 people on that jury that hate guns, and your defense lawyer is trying to get 7 that love guns. Somebody's probably not going to win. It's going to be 50-50 at your best. I wouldn't leave it up to a jury to decide my life. You know, that's just not worth the shoot. Now, if he was going to hurt me, lethally come at me, that's a different matter. But if you just keep in your mind that if it's a lethal threat or great bodily harm, that's when I might need to shoot. That would be far better than he broke into my house and I'm going to protect my house. It's not a good toss-up for you in court.
What about if you're, most of these things you see people in stores where there's someone that comes in through the front door and starts shooting people or attacking someone in a 7-Eleven, and you happen to have your firearm and you're standing next to them and watching the whole thing? I mean, do you try to help someone?
Okay, that's another really good question. First of all, about going to restaurants and stuff, and if we go out, we like to go out to eat before we go to the show or whatever. If the person who's seating you goes, would you like this table here? No, not really, I want the one back there, okay? And we just sort of watch in both directions. We keep aware of what's going on around us. We spend a really big chunk of time in our class talking about situational awareness and planning and all that kind of stuff. However, I have this come up in class a lot when we talk about tactics. And they'll say, I'm in Kmart or I'm in Walmart, and a guy comes in and he starts shooting people. I'm going to engage him. And I go, well, wait just a minute. Okay? This is David A. Lombardo's 3 rules of engagement. When that happens, what do you think rule number 1 is? run away, okay? Run away. Get behind something solid that will stop a bullet. Once you are in a position where you are safe and secure, then you can make a decision what you're going to do next. But let me tell you something. Number 3, get behind, run away, get behind something, stop a bullet. Number 3 is call 911, right? Let's get the gang out. And then number 4, decide how you're going to deal with this. Now, it is a tendency for people to go, he's out there shooting people, I'm going in. Let me explain something to you. When you go out there and you start shooting at him and the cops arrive, do you know what they call you?
Bad guy.
An active shooter. You have become an active shooter. How do they know you're a good guy? They have no idea you're a good guy. They'll drop you like a box of rocks. Some people just get this thing, I'm going to carry a gun, someone gives me crap, I'm going to shoot his ass. You get that from people. Dude, that's a really bad way to look at this. All right? The object of concealed carry is to prevent someone from harming. That's all. You can't go and win somebody's gunfights. I know you want to do that, and if I were caught out in the open and I had no choice, okay, but it doesn't do me any good to get myself killed. I can't help anybody. I can't even call 911 if I'm dead. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Also talk about the difference between seeing it start and not seeing it start.
Oh, good, yes. So here's a good one. This is another one I use. You're walking down the street and you have concealed carry, right? And you turn a corner and you see about a 6'3", I want to say 275-pound guy, roughly, on top of a fairly diminutive woman. They're on the sidewalk and they're fighting over a gun. And he's almost got that gun pointed to her head, not quite. She's got both hands wrapped around it, and they're struggling, and he's on top of her, and he's almost got that gun pointed to her head. What do? This is the audience participation portion.
Get your cell phone
of the
out and
evening.
take a picture of it.
What are you going to do? Let him shoot her? In that case, it actually was kind of funny. In that case, the guy pulled the gun out and he said, drop the gun, and they both started yelling, I'm a federal officer, which made it interesting. As it turns out, he was an undercover DEA agent and she pulled the gun on him in a drug bust. And he was trying to get the gun away from her. Most of the people in class are going, well, I'd shoot him, I wouldn't let him shoot her. Well, you just shot a federal agent if you do that. Unless you see it unfold yourself, you got no business getting involved. You call 911. And I know that doesn't sound right, but how are you going to explain killing somebody who was innocent?
All right, someone's in your house, and you confront them, you've got a gun. You don't know whether they have a gun or not on them, you're not sure. But you tell them to get on the ground, and they refuse to do it. All right, now, to me, if I were on a jury, trying a case like that, I'll say, well, look, if this guy just says, I felt my life was threatened when I shot this guy because he wouldn't get on the ground, I would say I would be inclined to let the man go. You need 12 to convict, correct? So
my question would be, what about a standing man threaten you when we're holding a gun? The fact that he wouldn't get on the ground? Okay.
Well, he's not compliant with what, he's in your home.
Well, he broke in, so he's not exactly a stellar citizen either. It just goes back to this. You got to convince a jury that what you did, knowing what you knew at the time, was appropriate. Now, that sounds real easy when you say that. The problem is, depending on where you are, that jury constitution, you may be having to try and prove yourself when you shouldn't have to try to prove yourself. What I'm saying is this. I've seen it. I've heard of other people who've been in it. It's a very slushy system. And you really don't want to get into it if you can avoid it. You really don't. It's just that simple. You shoot somebody, if they're holding a lethal weapon in your house, yeah, that's pretty cut and dry, okay? Unless you shoot them in the back, that's not going to be cut and dry. But here's the thing. You take about a 6'3", 250-pound guy, and you take a 5'90" woman, he doesn't have to be armed. You know, just his sheer size is more than enough to do whatever he wants to do. So it's this sort of sliding scale thing. Where do I fall on this thing? Is this good judgment or not? And you got to make that decision now. One of the things I tell people that they don't seem to grasp before is you're the victim. Right here, right now, sitting in this room. And I don't think this is true, I hope not, but right here, right now, sitting in this room, somebody could be looking at you thinking, he came in a Lexus. I've always wanted a Lexus. You don't even know they exist. When do you find out they exist? When it's probably too late to do anything.
But driving away with your Lexus.
Exactly, or they're confronting you face to face and say, give me your car. And that problem with that is you're playing catch-up baseball from the start, and it's a sociopath. And the worst thing you can do with a sociopath is challenge her. Do that or I'll shoot you. Yeah, you think you can? Well, yes, he does, actually. He does think he can. You never allow yourself to challenge a sociopath. Now, we show you how to deal with that, but you don't deal with it by challenging. That's for sure.
You mentioned your radio program on, what, Sunday nights, you said?
Sunday nights, yeah, on Target Radio, AM 560. Yes. Somebody said to me, you do that show? And I go, yeah. I don't recognize your voice. And I go, oh, sure, I understand. Ready? You're listening to on Target Radio, and this is AM 560. The answer. There you go. Yeah, Sunday nights on the AM 560. Okay. This Sunday night, we're probably going to talk about Orlando. I don't know if you've seen all the stuff that's been coming out. It's not what it started out to be. It's really getting convoluted. In fact, it's a horrible tragedy, but it's almost becoming farcical. I mean, it's gotten so totally over the top with the stuff we're hearing now. So that's probably what we're going to talk, unless something big happens between now and then.
They're talking now about the wife's obligation to have informed the authorities if she knew.
She helped him case.
As a participant.
Yeah, that's right.
She's going to jail.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm in the club and I've got a gun, is it my obligation to shoot the bad guys?
No. First off, you wouldn't have got in the club and patted everybody down but him.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
Well, because you know why? He used to go there all the time.
He went in late.
Yeah.
They have 3 security guards in the beginning, and towards the end of the thing, they only have 1 at the door. It was towards the end, 3 o'clock in the morning.
This is way beyond bizarre.
Yes.
It's gotten way beyond bizarre. Every day, I mean, yesterday the stuff was coming so fast, I couldn't print it out for our show log. Bing, the computer kept doing that. Something the wife knew. The wife helped him buy ammo and case the place. He's gay. He's a Muslim and he's gay. And he goes and he shoots a bunch of, I mean, it's like, I thought for a while I'm thinking somebody's hacking my computer, sending me crap, you know? You can't make this stuff up. So, I don't know. But obviously it was George Bush's fault, so. Obviously. Anybody else? Anybody else I can?
On a radio show, how come you put Gretchen all the way back in the corner?
Well, because Gretchen has her own counsel back there.
Ah.
Now, he said, how come you put Gretchen back in the corner?
Well, you could go back in the corner, she could come up front.
Yeah.